to ensure that young people are held at a high regard, especially when they are contesting in the electoral processes, but also when they are going to promote different political party processes, because we actually do know that a lot of young people are at risk of misquoted or being taken in that little bulge as seen as young people who are always doing trouble instead of trying to educate the society to bring about change. So in this regard, ideally, in today's webinar session is around a thematic focus of youth in democratic and civic engagement. This is part of the wider Women and Youth in Democratic Civic Engagement initiative that is supported by the Kofi Annan Foundation, European Partnership for Democracy, Westminster Foundation for Democracy, and also the Oslo Center in the European Union funded project, and it's actually implemented throughout Africa in different segmatic focuses, that is in Anglophone and Francophone. So as others are joining in, we'll go ahead and start with our session and welcome one of our key speakers for today, who's going to take us through how can young people be better informed to take up public office positions in Tanzania. She's actually Miss Nyangubu Yesi. She's done a lot of work around civic engagement currently in the country, and also she's the founder and executive director of her Uraia initiative. I think she'll be able to tell us more what her Uraia initiative does and the work that she's been doing in relations to ensuring that young people can better be informed to take up public office positions in Tanzania. Ms. Nyangubu, you're mostly welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Hello there.
Hello. Yes, we can hear you.
Hello. No. All right. So I will stop my camera to be able to communicate with you well, and I'll be very much comfortable when I do that. So my name is Nyangubu Nyamsogoro. I am a co-founder and executive director of Uraia Clickers. So literally, Uraia Clickers is an initiative that aims to reevaluate the value of young girls and women in shaping their leadership skills, so as to build young girls and women who can contest in different leadership positions by using education. So literally, we are providing civic education, leadership skills trainings, and leadership skills training. So the vision of Uraia is to see a Tanzanian society where young girls and women are actively participating in leadership and effectively representing their communities. So as far as Uraia Clickers, we saw a gap in the previous election, as women were just as voters and not the ones who were contesting. So we saw that and we took that as a challenge, and so our vision, our solution, what we want to do is we want to capacitate these young girls and young girls and women so as to actively participate in leadership and effectively representing their communities. As you are all witness, in the previous election, the number of women as contestants was very low. And so as Uraia Clickers, we want to increase the number of women who can contest by giving them leadership skills, civic education, and contesting skills. Clickers, we have been doing a lot. Go directly to present what I have prepared on how young people can be better informed and take up public office positions in Tanzania. So what I really think is, without youth representation, these local councils and LGAs and in the national at large, the unique needs of these majority populations, which are young people, will not be included when developing the budget and planning. So for us youth, we are being left behind. Our needs are not discussed well because we are not there. And even if we are there, I think we are not as many as we are supposed to be there. So what I think should be done, I think we should start with, we should have education workshops and training programs where young people can be well equipped with educational material. And yes, I think there should be organized workshops and training programs to educate young people about political processes, as we all know that in our country, for one to take a political position, one has to be part of a political party. We don't have a free person, like a person can just contest from out of nowhere without having a political party. So I think it's the right time for youth to be educated on the political processes, governance structures, and responsibilities of public office positions. And I think with provision of these leadership skills, we should also include public speaking skills, leadership skills, policy development, like that. For example, with us, Hawariya Clickers, we have been providing training specific to girls and young women on leadership skills and civic education. Also, we have been equipping them with the skills and abilities to make sure that these young girls and women are not only getting the knowledge on civic education and leadership skills, but also they are equipped with contesting skills so as to allow them to win different public office positions in both local government authority elections and the general elections. So I think it's the right time for different stakeholders to conduct and to prepare educational workshop and training programs to equip these young people with potential knowledge to allow them to take place in public positions. Yes, and the other point, I think we should, there should be mentorship programs. And these mentorship programs, where we have been seeing that youth are lacking this experience. So I think by conducting these mentorship programs, we should be pairing young aspirants, to mean young people who wants to contest for different positions, with experienced mentors. And then these mentors are the ones who will be providing guidance, advice, and support in navigating the path toward public office. So mentors will be sharing their knowledge, their experience, and help these young people to build successful political careers. So another thing, I think there should be youth engagement initiatives, as there, I think it's the right time for youth to have platforms that will allow them to engage in political discussions, debates, community projects. So when youth are engaging in these things, they will be encouraged to involve themselves in decision-making processes, to develop their leadership skills and civic awareness. And these youth engagement initiatives should start from the grassroots level, as for them to attend village community meetings, to know how things are prepared, to know how things are discussed, why are they discussed, to engage themselves there, so as to know what they are really supposed to do when they take up those public office positions. So another thing, I think there should be networking opportunities for young people, as these young individuals need to to be connected with the established politicians. This connection for young people, I mean, these young people needs to have a connection with the established politicians, as they can learn from these politicians and know what to do. And I believe in the power of networking, and I do believe that networking can open doors that were not there before. As if a young person is networking with a, let's say, established politician, he or she can open more doors for mentorship, collaboration, and potential pathways to public office, as the guidance, like, you should do this and do this in order to reach in a certain place. So the other point, I think there should be access to right information, as right now we see there is a problem to misinformation, as youth are being misguided, are being misguided and are being misinformed on different information, especially on the civic informations. So if a young person has no right information on civic education, meaning he or she would not be able to take place in a public office. So I think it's a right time for young people to have access to right information, as, let's say, digital platform. There should be digital platforms to let's say, like social medias that disseminate information about political processes. Let's say upcoming election, opportunity for youth involvement. I believe if there is a right website, let's say maybe in an Instagram page that has right information, that provide right information in a friendly language, and a simple language that is easy to be understood by any Tanzanian youth, it will be a good thing for them to learn and get such information. So this access to right information will ensure that young people have access to accurate and timely information about political development. Let's say they have announced that they are providing, let's say, election forms. Youth will be easily will know that information and act accordingly. Let's say there is information about election processes and maybe public office requirement. So the presence of access to right information will equip these young people to know what they are supposed to do at what time, and what are they really, and to know what they're supposed to do at a very right time. So another thing which is has to be done, I think there should be financial support during campaigns. Young people face a biggest challenge when conducting their campaigns. Most of the young people don't have enough financial, don't have enough money to conduct their campaigns. As we know, campaigns needs money. You would have to move from point A to point B. You need transport fee there. You will have to go at a certain place and give a speech. You need a PA system. You need a car. So these young people lack such stuff. So I think young people should be provided with the resources to support them in running for public offices. I think including campaign management assistance, fundraising guidance, and communication strategies. This will encourage young people, presence of financial aid or financial support during campaigns. We encourage young people to participate in political campaigns and share their positive change. Yes, so also the other thing I think should be done for young people to be formed to take up the public offices position in Tanzania. I think there should be advocacy and policy impact. as such things will encourage young people to advocate for policies that support youth representation in decision-making bodies and promote inclusivity in public offices. So yeah, that was my presentation, and I think by winding up my presentation, I think I should end by saying empowering Tanzanian youth for public offices to drive informed engagement. Youth must cultivate their passion and understanding of public positions, as youth should be passionate in taking you should be passionate in understanding the public positions. It's a requirement what they are supposed to do, because it is not the leadership position do not need youth. It needs youth who are well equipped with the knowledge on how to run these public offices. So as a young person, I would love to say that we as youth, we should have the passion and the understanding. We should learn, we should invest in learning, we should invest in we should put so much time learning from others, learning from books, so as to make sure that we are well equipped with the public positions material. We're well equipped with the leadership positions, with the leadership skills. Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nyangubu, for that great submission. I think one thing is definitely clear. There is a need of increased mentorship. There is a need of increased right information, as you rightly put it, but also how can young people really go out there to spread or inform the community on how best to tackle mis and disinformation if there's not actually enough financial or technical resources per se. So I do think most of the engagements and submissions are quite valid, and actually the key pointers also helps us to really understand how can we learn from others. And just as we are on that point, how do we really actually learn from others? And I will come back to you again on that a bit later. I'd like to welcome Ms. Yolokazi Mfuto. Yolokazi Mfuto actually is a development and political analyst from the Republic of South Africa, and she's going to share a bit of insights of how the young people in South Africa are doing it. So really, Ms. Yolokazi, could you please share with us the role of young leaders to promote accountability and good governance with lessons from South Africa? How has the South African young people managed to do it, and what can the youth in Tanzania and other parts of Africa learn?
Good day, everyone. Thank you so much, moderator. Yes, as introduced, my name is Yolokazi Mfuto. I am in South Africa, and today we are celebrating International Nelson Mandela Day. For those who probably have missed it, Nelson Mandela was our first Black democratically elected president in South Africa. So happy Mandela Day, everyone. But also it will be an indictment on my case if I don't necessarily see young people across the continent, young people who have seen them making strides in holding their governments accountable. We have seen young people taking up space to actually have their voice heard in political spaces. We've seen young people in Nigeria in the NSARS. We've seen young people in Burkina Faso. We have seen young people in the DRC. We've seen young people recently in Kenya rejecting the finance bill. So we see you as young people in the entire continent, and we want to stand together and say, maybe if we push a little harder, things are going to change. So I'm truly proud to be a young person in this day and age. But also now I have been invited to actually speak about the role that young people have played in South Africa, particularly looking into accountability and good governance. And sometimes when we speak of young people, we speak as if this is a new innovation, that young people are taking up space, young people are being involved in government, and also young people are agitating for accountability. But for many years in the continent, we have seen a lot of uprising and a lot of change that has been brought by young people. We have seen that when African states were fighting for independence, when young new governments were ushered in, it was the role that young people played that changed things fundamentally. So this is not a new phenomenon, but maybe the challenge that we have that we can speak about some other time is the fact that the old people that have ushered in this liberation that today we are enjoying are still holding on to power. So this is why we need a new set of revolution that young people need to champion. And I'm also going to highlight some of the great strides that particularly South African youth have been able to make whilst holding government to account. Firstly, let's start to what everyone, I think it was well documented, the Fees Must Fall movement, right? Which was actually bringing, not necessarily bringing anything, but it was actually advocating for government to actually see quality education as a need and something that had to be delivered urgently. So for many years in South Africa, education is free. Education is something that you can attain. You have access to quality education, but the access, you must pay for it, right? So young people took to the streets in 2015 up to 2017, where young people are calling for government to actually usher in a free and decolonized education. But most importantly, one thing I want us to highlight, it was not only a single methodology aspect of it, where young people were calling for education, for free, decolonized quality education, but they also called for insourcing of workers in institutions of higher learning. They called for decolonization, change of curriculum, change of representatives of the institution, change of who gets to teach and who gets to be taught in what institutions. So that is a very multi-dimensional, intersectional approach in changing the dynamics of the country. So that was a revolution that the world is still astonished about, that young people could unite from different sectors to fight for one particular cause. And of course, maybe the result was not as what we wanted as young people, including myself. However, young people now in South Africa have access to quality education with NSFAS, the national scheme, financial aid scheme, converted to loans. But secondly, when we also look into the role that young people have played in governance and seeking accountability, is not only limited to the young people who we deem as educated, right? Because sometimes we tend to forget people on the ground, people who are fighting for their needs each day, people who protest in their townships, in their villages, in their area. These people, most of the times, their stories are never documented. We've seen young people fighting against the introduction of mining companies in their areas, where they were holding government to account, taking government to court to say that this is not part of our integrated development plan. This is not the part or the path that we want to traverse in seeking for economic growth in this country. Because mining damages our communities. Mining makes people sick in this community. Therefore, we shall reject. So we saw young people in Kolobeni, where I come from, in the Eastern Cape, they were holding government to account in that regard. But thirdly, we've seen young people protesting for various needs in the country. We've seen people protesting in townships for housing. We've seen young people actually leading campaigns to advance literacy so that the people in their area are able to converse, one, in the language that they're comfortable in, but two, they're able to read and write. So we saw those not protest uprisings, where young people are actually taking up space to say that this is the change we want to see in our community. But also now I want to go into young people who are participating in governance. Also young people now, those young people, then they become very important for us young people. Because in as much as we want representation, but we want meaningful representation. We want young people who have the hearts, who have the needs of young people as their need. Because it's one thing to believe that as a young person, therefore they have your interest. So we need to interrogate their interest and also hold them to account as well on when you go to parliament, whose interest are you representing? Or when you go into government, whose interest are you representing? So in South Africa, let me give you the example. When we had the Fees Must Fall movement, which was largely a movement that was not based on party lines, the political party organizations, as much as that universities, but young people united alongside party lines. However, the young people who were part of the struggle, who were leading the struggles, their parties rewarded them. That's what the term I use. Rewarded them, put them in parliament, gave them lucrative positions in governance, right? That was great. We celebrate the social mobility of young people. However, then our job starts as, what are you championing as an office bearer now? What are you championing in your debates in parliament? Are you speaking about the quality education that you fought for? Are you advocating for it? So we've seen a lot of young people ascending to positions of power in parliament, in cabinet. We've seen them in local government as well. That has been great, right? Right now, currently, we have a great percentage of our members of parliament, members of the cabinet who are young people. So it becomes quite tricky for us to be able to hold them to account, to say, this is what we fought for, this is what you promised that you're going to do, therefore deliver on those promises. So it becomes quite important that when these young people are in these positions, they do exactly what they were doing when they still mere activists on the ground, when they are decision makers. So currently in South Africa, we have a young person leading the basic education ministry, which then we are looking into, like, ensuring that this young person delivers, because they know the cries that people have on the ground with regards to basic education. We have a young deputy minister of higher education and training. Therefore, we also expect much from him. We have seen young people who are leading portfolio committees in parliament. We want them to be accountable. We want them to do much more because they've been on the ground. They know the kind of work. And maybe lastly, before I actually go to why it's so important that the young people are part of the lead, the accountability measures of the country, but also a part of what we see as good government. So recently we saw in South Africa, we have what we call, that is referred to as a government of national unity. As some of you have known that we had elections on the 29th of May, and then for the elections did not necessarily produce an outright majority for any party. Then the parties had to actually seek and consolidate power, and they formulated what we call government of national unity. Government of national unity now becomes what ushered many young people, because the different political organizations submitted people that they would like to be ministers or be office bearers in various sectors of government, right? The young people there now, the most interesting part is that they get along so well that even beyond party lines, they see each other. So that is quite important for us as young people in the continent, where we want to advance change, that we see each other beyond our differences. We unite because of what puts us on the table together, fundamentally, right? So currently, we are seeing young people who are deputy ministers, ministers who are from the opposition parties. So that becomes a beacon of hope that young people can actually forget everything else and unite for a cause that is going to change for better. And now, as I conclude, Chair, we usually say that young people are the majority of the population, about 70%. And I always say that is interesting, that is important, right? And we've seen as well, particularly in South Africa, that young people, when they want things to be done, they want change, they've always done it. We've seen with Che Guevara, we've seen Fidel Castro, we've seen with Thomas Sankara, we've seen Julius Nyerere, we've seen with South Africa, we've seen with Nelson Mandela, Mandela, we have seen with Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, we've seen with a lot of people starting off as young people and as part of a portion of the population. But truth of the matter is that the young people today who are 70% are going to be 100% of the future, because they will be grown, they will be adults, but now they will be part of the bigger population. So it's important that whatever that we do today does not necessarily only serve us today, but it serves for the future. And we also take lessons from other countries. Currently in South Africa right now, we've been applauding the young people of Kenya for taking up space and actually taking a stance to say that we shall reject this finance bill. And we've seen the result, that young people of Kenya have actually gotten a chance to be seen and heard by the government by taking it to the streets. So it's quite important that we have such discussions, but also we caution each other as young people that we should not focus on the differences that we have, but to focus on the similarities that we have, but also we always have our eye on the bigger picture, because definitely if you have to attain this vision or this mission, as Frans Fanon said, we must be united, and we must be able to take stock of what has happened and also how we can plan for a better future. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that powerful submission. I think I was more concentrated on getting the gist and the grasp of it. And happy Mandela Day. I think it's quite great that we are having this session on a similar day, that is Mandela Day, but also to have you on board with us to actually share these key insights. It's quite helpful. And I think it's quite evident what you said. There is a need to have young people who are actually committed, not engaging young people in the sake of ticking boxes. I think it's quite common in most countries. And I think we do learn something from the Republic of South Africa. The young people in South Africa are daring. And I think it's something that we can all adapt and see how best to learn moving forward. So Ms. Yolokazi, I'll definitely come back to you a bit later. Thank you for the great submission. And just to also inform our audience, if you have any questions or comments, please keep them on the chat box or pack them, and then we'll get to address them a bit later. So ideally, as you all know, in this session, I am co-moderating with my colleague, Brian Chagu. Brian Chagu is actually a research consultant at Imara Leadership Initiative, but also he works on good governance and political related programming, especially with a focus on conflict resolution. He's actually currently a PhD candidate, and he has managed to join us from Poland, and he'll be co-moderating the next session starting from now. Brian, over to you.
Yes, well, thank you so much, Pafida, and thank you everyone else for joining. Good afternoon once again. I'd like to welcome everyone to Imara Youth Democracy Talk webinars. I'm Brian Chagu, as my colleague just explained, and I'll be moderating the second part of our session. And just a reminder for those who are just currently joining us, our theme today is youth leaders, actors to end myths and disinformation in elections in Tanzania. And we have a panel of distinguished speakers who will address the critical role of young leaders in promoting accountability and good governance. So also I'd like to thank Ms. Yolokazi Mfuto and Ms. Nyangubu for their submission. Actually, just to a recap of what Ms. Yolokazi just highlighted about the power and the influence of young people that currently possess, as well as the drive, as you've seen currently in Kenya, where the young people are able to push with the agenda of rejecting the finance bill, which was ultimately dropped by the government of Kenya. So without a further ado, I would like to present the panelists of the second part of our session, who will be Mr. Lenin Kazoba. The second one will be Ms. Suvia Mohammed. The third one will be Mr. Salemani Abdul Makwita, and the last one will be Mr. Abdallah Abed. So to our first speaker, Mr. Lenin Kazoba, I will introduce him briefly, what he does, his area of interest. So Mr. Lenin Kazoba is a co-founder and executive director of Tanzania Youth Coalition. Under the TYC, Mr. Lenin manages different projects such as participation of youth and women in political participation with the European Union under the partnership with EFEC, the Swedish organization. He also cooperates with a number of universities in Tanzania, such as RT, University of Dar es Salaam, and abroad universities like University of Copenhagen. So without wasting time, over to you, Mr. Kazoba. As much as we understand that the low engagement among youth in elections remains a significant issue in Tanzania, often fueled by myths surrounding youth registration. So considering your extensive work in the Tanzania Youth Coalition, what do you believe are the strategies which are most effective in debunking this myth and encouraging a higher voter turnout among the young people in Tanzania and, of course, the rest of Africa and probably the rest of the world? Welcome, Ms. Kazoba. I see you with us here.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for
Good
moderating.
afternoon. Mm-hmm. No problem. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And for me, that is very honor to be with you guys. And it's a very interesting to listen from the other speakers. And I could just say that this is an area that as the Tanzania Youth Coalition, we engage a lot. As you know that this year we are approaching to the local local election, and next year for general election, 2025. So the key point for us as an organization now, and we prepare that for this. First of all, we have been trying to make sure that we're giving a lot of information to young people so that they turn out when it comes to the via different position. And as you know that in Tanzania, the local election has not been really key to many people that to via different position, especially when you come to the young people. So what are the strategy we are going to use? First of all, we are going to use the engagement on the social media. And this is, we've been already started and we'll continue to do that to inform young people when the current information that will be also here out. So we are going to working close with the local government authority on the district areas that we are implementing the project. As moderator was introducing us, at the moment we are implementing one of the projects under USAID that is called USAID Kijana Nahodha, Young Captain, where we covered it we are working in the Zanzibar, the whole entire Zanzibar, Dar es Salaam and the Morogoro. So we expect that through this area that we are going to empower young people on the knowledge and how they can also via different position when it comes to the information that regarding on the local election. As you know that this election has been really not very aware for many people here in Tanzania. And for us, as we know that the whole entire of government decision are started from the local government. So this year we are going to use as much as possible that the awareness raising to make sure that young people are taking part on that. But also we are going to recruit young people who they will be also observer to see the turnout when it comes to the different position where young people are going to vie. So in order just for them to understand what is happening on the ground. So far, we have been also close working with the ministry, which has been coordinating this the local election, and we're hopeful that we're going to be accredited for giving a voter education and also the observation. And we, as to build on that, the coming election next year, we are going to do the civic education as well, and voter education and observation. From the last general election, we have experienced that where we were able to recruit 265 young people who they were observers in 3 regions. So we are going to increase the number for this for the coming election, where we hopefully to reach more than 500 young people who they can be observers for the coming general election. Why we are doing that? Because, as we mentioned, that there's been a lot of low turnout when it comes to the general election, and you see that a lot of young people are really registered to the voter registration, and this is because of the needs or the position where the candidates which they are vying different positions. So we encouraging that young people, they should also be aware when it comes to the party campaign. They should also attending and hear what as the candidates or the contestants they are going to promise, especially when they'll be elected. Because of by doing that, this will going to help them to know what kind of contestant they can just elect, but also for giving opportunity for them to participate in the observation. It shows us also, because most of the time we've seen that there are some violence. It happening in the voter, in the polling stations. But by giving a confidence for them to be as a part of the observers, they can also speak for themselves and see that the reality, because sometimes you have that the hearsay. But if you participate in that and you see all the process, it can give the confidence, and then also they can be as a change makers. So we should also to increase the number. We're going to increase the number, but also to encourage more young people also to vie a different position. And you know that in our country, that other speaker was saying that according to the Tanzania Constitution, where there's no position where as an individual person it can just vie or it can be elected. So you need to be a member of political party, and this is we need to champion for that, because this is according to Tanzania Constitution. But you cannot, if you want to vie a different position and to become a leader, either the councillor or member parliament, you need to be in a certain party. So the idea is just also they need to be a member of the different political parties. And this is the very important information we need to circulate, we need to share to the young people when we are organizing our dialogue. We are going to organize different dialogue here in Dar es Salaam, in Morogoro and Zanzibar, so that young people, they can be aware of what is going on, and they become also the some of the participants who are also being part of our program. They can be a change makers and a champion as well, where they can also share this information through different information. For example, we have a social media accounts in a Twitter, Instagram, where we post in different information regarding this on the what is the situation when it comes to the local election and general election, but in general with other also information. So by doing this, it's going to give us it's going to give more opportunity for young people also to show the interest of via different position, because at the moment they don't have more information when it comes, when it's going to start, when we're talking about the local election, when it's going to happen exactly. So we need to increase the sharing of information when the local election is going to take place. And as you know that in the local election in Tanzania, we are not going to use a voter ID. This is a different approach. So they have to be registered in the local respective areas in order for them to know when is the dates that will be announced under the PRAG, TAMISEMI. So this is something that we as TYC, we're going to carry on to make sure that young people are really informed. And we already started we wrote a letter to our ministry to have a request of having the accredited of giving education on that, civic education, but also to be a part of the observation, so that we can also report and see that the turnout when it comes to the our local election, but also the coming election next year. I'm sure you know that there's a voter registration book. This is been starting. It's going to start on the 22nd, and will continue for a short period of time. But also will resume for the next year, because they have a breakup in two dimensions. One is starting from this year, and they're going to continue next year around February or March. So we are going to continue that, giving also this information. And why we're doing that? Because we realized that in the last general election, when it comes to the polling stations, most of the young people, they don't have for instance, sometimes some of the young people, they are just lost their ID. So they were using, the government were allowed that also they can use another ID, for example, national identification card, or you can use your own passport. But we realized that some of them, their names which they were using to the voter ID are different compared to the national ID. So we have to give this awareness and a clear information when they are going to register to the voter education. They need to use the proper names, which is equivalent to the same to the national identification, which is if you lost your voter ID, then you can use your national identification or either your passport. So your names should be equally to all ID that you have it, because sometimes it has bring a lot of attention when it comes to some of the polling station where you can find the company, some of the people who are via different position become very strong. Some of the representative, they cannot allow them to vote. So we need to go away from this and to make sure that we give that clear information when it comes to them to register in a voter exercise book, so that they can have a clear information. So by saying that, of course, this is ongoing. We should not will not stop it this year on this, but also we'll try also to make sure that we evaluate and see how they turn out when it comes to the voter registration book, so that to increase the participation for them, also to be aware, especially when it comes to the local government election for this year in November. So by saying that, maybe I should stop that. And if there will be any question, I would like also to answer later. Thank you very much, moderator. Over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Lenin. One more time, I'd like to remind the audience that the organization that Mr. Lenin is leading is one of the leading Tanzania youth-led organizations working on women and youth political issues, and especially on civic engagement process. So just a quick recap what Mr. Lenin has mentioned, like the engagement of young people in social media, which we have seen currently has been an important aspect of driving social change or political change. A good example we have so far is the Kenya youth demonstrations. For some of you that do not know, that the demonstrations were organized online via Twitter and TikTok to try to organize a number of young people to demonstrate and picket on the instance of rejecting the finance bill. So once again, here you highlighted the importance of using the social media, as well as having more observers during the election process as well, civic education and voter education, which is really important, party campaign, as well as having more contestants in the political process. That means in the political parties. And another issue that you highlighted is also trying to avoid political violence during the whole process of the election. That is, means before the election, during campaigns, during the election, and of course the post-election period. The last thing, which I think you highlighted very well, is the voter ID issue and the national ID, which I think currently, as we understand in Tanzania, brings a bit of conflicting issues here. So I hope with the organization, maybe we'll have tried to convince probably the local government authority or the government in general to see how to solve this issue, but as well as the young people registering in the voter registration book. So once again, thank you so much, Mr. Lenin. I believe some people will have questions, but we will address them at the end. So now we're going to welcome our second speaker, Mr. Sylvia Mkomwa. I believe she's here. As well as just to introduce her to the audience, Miss Sylvia Mkomwa is a member of the Youth Conference Committee 2023-2024, Office of the African Youth Envoy. She's very passionate about the issues of women, gender, democracy. She also was listed in one of the 100 most notable women in Africa, emerging in advocacy for youth, peace, security agenda, and a communication program specialist. She is also currently a project lead and a manager at Caliber First Group Limited in Tanzania. She holds a bachelor in political science and public administration from the University of Dar es Salaam, with over 7 years experiences in youth empowerment as well as peace building. So now over to you, Ms. Sylvia Mkomwa. We're going to head to your particular section or subtopic. So for you, Sylvia, you do understand that young people often feel disconnected from the political process and unsure of how to get involved. Given your vast experience in advocacy work, how can we better inform and empower young people to take up public offices or public positions in Tanzania, and ensuring that their voices are well represented in the whole process of policymaking? Thank you, and once again, welcome, Ms. Sylvia.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening. I hope everyone is well. Thank you to the former speakers for their brief presentations. My name is Sylvia Mkomwa. I am a member of the Youth Reference Committee from the Office of the African Union Youth Envoy, and our advocacy mainly based on strengthening the participation, global youth participation, so both in Africa, but also we collaborate with other youth from different countries and continents to make sure that we meaningfully participate in different aspects. So one of the areas that we are looking at is the youth inequalities, whether it's on the issues of peace and security, whether it's the issues of governance, human rights, and all other sectors that we have in our community. As my question stated on how better, what better can be done to make sure that young people participate in public offices. My other former presenters mentioned a lot of challenges that are facing young people, and they hinder young people to participate in these seats, including lack of information, lack of limited civic education, lack of leadership skills, because it's one thing having just knowledge, being educated as a person, but also it's important to specify the education that these young people are getting. So if we're talking about young people wanting to meaningful and effectively participate in these positions, it means we have to be intentional about civic education, on the processes, on how can they engage, how can they engage effectively, but also leadership skills, because we don't want just young people to have a representation. We're saying we want a large number of people representing in these seats, but do we really want their meaningful participation on the leadership seats? We need to see the results that comes with our representation. So we are looking at economic barriers, looking at these public seats. It also takes financial capacity for a person to run for seats, especially the political seats, because they have to go through campaigns, there's a lot of lobbying, there's a lot of going around. Imagine if just that one young person can only reach out to his community, which are only family members and friends, and the votes depends on the whole community, maybe from 500 people. So without the financial capacity to move around, to lobby and to campaign, how can they afford or be able to accomplish what they need to achieve, which is being in those seats, because it's not just about you being intentional about where you want to be, but also there needs to be efforts that will lead you to where you want to be. But also we are looking at cultural, social barriers, how young people have always been put aside. There's no collaboration with young people. The community is not intentional about having young people in the leadership seats, especially in these public positions. And that does not only go for maybe the community itself, but also for how us as young people have meaningfully participated. For the few of young people that have gotten into these positions, what have they been doing? Are they really representing the majority of young people? So sometimes it's not only about how the community perceives us as young people in regards to being on the table, but also have we proven that we really we do know that we need to be there, but can we actually perform when we are there? But also we're looking at political barriers, and here we go beyond just the political ideologies that we have, leaders that have stayed in these leadership positions for so many years, and it's not easy for a young person to penetrate in these seats. You have someone who stayed on the seats for 30 years, 40 years. So the transformation, the transition, it's not going to be an easy job, especially looking at the gaps that young people and maybe the older people have, especially the ones in the positions. Young people, we're looking at the economic barriers where the ones on the seats, they're already achieved, they have financial freedom to lobby, they have financial freedom to perform the campaigns. So how can a young person compete with a person who's well financially when it comes to running for leadership seats? But also the issue of mindset. We're looking at how young people, sometimes we put ourselves aside when it comes to the public seat opportunities. We see a lot of young people are growing into the private sector, are growing into the NGO sectors. We have a lot of CEOs, we have a lot of founders, we have a lot of entrepreneurs, young people becoming leaders in so many other sectors. But what about the public sector? What are we afraid of? Do we need the courage? Do we need the empowerment? Do we need to trust ourselves also to say that, you know what, I'm a young person, but I believe that I can be change, and change can be anywhere, including the public seats? Because even in these barriers, sometimes it does not affect every young people. We have seen young people who have fought to be on the public seats, and we have leaders that are already in these seats, whether they are performing or not. But that's already a step towards us believing that it is possible to be there. Our journeys might be different, but we cannot give up on what we think will positively impact our community. Because referencing to young people, we are the representation, we are the future, just like the previous presenter spoke, that young people are majority in this world, and we have the energy, we are innovators, we can drive these leadership seats into very fresh perspectives. So coming back to the areas that I think we can better young people so as they can participate in public leadership positions, first of all, is to be informed. It's one thing being intentional about wanting to be a leader, but information is the key. It will help you penetrate even in the barriers that you think you cannot escape. We need to familiarize with our communities, with our constitutions. We need to educate ourselves. But also, it's not only for us to educate ourselves, but education empowerment comes also from, we have NGOs, we have our current government, that we have youth policies that indicate young people to be empowered. So how can we strengthen the efforts towards making sure that young people attain leadership skills, but also young people attain civic education? Because most of these positions you need to run for the post. So if you don't know where to start, if you don't know the qualifications that you need to have, then it's going to be hard for you to to be able to be in these seats, because you cannot be, if you cannot even be on the process, how can you be on the table? Yes, but also structural gaps. We can see how we can go through a transition. What do I mean? We need intentional leaders. We have existing leaders. We need for them to be intentional about involving young people, making sure that these young people pave way in order for them to have a seat at the table. We have seen in other East African countries, maybe like Uganda, they have youth advisories to the president. A young person who can actually directly speak to the president, advise the president on youth matters. So why can't we have that in other countries? For example, in countries like Kenya, you can see how their youth council is very active. But for our country, maybe Tanzania, we don't have a youth council, but it could be maybe one of the platforms that could bridge one of the gaps towards creating young leaders from a younger age, but at the lower stages before even going to these public seats. But also to develop sustainable policies. We might have good youth policies, but how well and effective are they implemented? How intentional are our implementers effective in making sure that whatever that is guided or outlined in our youth policies to ensure that young people participate in every sector, including leadership, is really working, is really bringing results. That's why we're saying there are efforts, but we are still not seeing the real number of representation that we need to see. We are not seeing the impact of the quality knowledge and skills, leadership skills to young people. So we still need to strengthen these efforts, but it can only be done by either developing these sustainable policies or implementing them effectively. But also to ensure that young people participate in politics. Political parties have youth wings. So we need to raise awareness on the importance of young people to participate in politics. Sometimes our local politics may give a different picture to a young person, whether they want to be involved in these platforms or not. But I still think we can still influence young people to get, especially young people who are really interested to become leaders of tomorrow, to become leaders of today. So it has a start, because we have policies and guidelines that, and others are not even policies, but they're just structures that are kept, ideologies that are kept, that you have to go through somewhere sometimes to get to these positions. So we start to learn and act even through these political party youth wings. So even our political parties should be very intentional to make sure that these youth wings are very effective in bringing positive results, making sure that young leaders that come from their political parties are really effective leaders, can really act meaningfully to make sure that other young people are well represented, but also to make sure that the impact of them being at those seats or at those platforms is really seen at the grassroots level. We have diverse groups of young people. We have marginalized groups of young people. We have people with disability. So how are we young people playing our role in regards to the support that we are getting, to make sure that the road is inclusive, to make sure that we have all kinds of representations when it comes to the leadership positions. So where does it start? It also starts in these platforms that create or pave way to young people to becoming young leaders, whether it's public leaders or political leaders, but it all starts from somewhere, and we need to be there, and we need to come out strong and effective. But also looking at the collaboration of young people through youth organizations. We have seen here, we have representatives from different organizations, empowering young people, empowering young women, making sure that in the coming elections, young people participate, to have a larger, each year we want to increase the number of young people who either compete for the post, but also who are interested aspirants to become leaders of tomorrow. So with collaboration with these youth organizations, it's easier to raise awareness, it's easier to penetrate through the minds of young people, to influence them to participate. And for me, when we say to participate, it's not only participating in competing, it's not only about telling this young person to become a leader, but leadership begins in the home, leadership begins in the person. The moment you decide to have a voting card, the moment you wake up in the morning on the voting day, say, I'm going to vote for a certain leader. That is one of the efforts that we young people play a role in, making sure that even if you don't want to be on those seats, but make sure your fellow young person, you support your fellow young person to be on that seat. So saying that I'm not participating in any processes is one thing, but we are missing out the point. We cannot all be leaders, but we can all support each other to become leaders. Even when we're saying to educate young people on civic education, on issues of leadership skills, we have few young people who will aspire to become leaders on that table, but we need a lot of young people who are behind this young person technically to help them, to help them bring out the ideas of other young peoples from different contexts, to help them bring strategies that they could reflect and respond to the needs of other young people. So it's not only about one person becoming someone, but we need a whole group of people behind that person. And I'm talking about young people to support that person, to make sure that their presence reflects our needs. Another thing is, we need to become role models, and that does not only come for young people, but also the community at large, because leadership is a lifelong journey that starts from home. So the more young people get to look at good people who are already in these positions, good people from the family level, is when we can also aspire to become good young leaders. So the image we also see from other people may reflect the perceptions and the ideas that we might create in our minds to becoming, whether becoming a good leader or a bad leader. So with that, I think I have captured what you asked me, but I would like to finish by saying that we should also leverage available platforms. You know, in our communities, we always think that getting into leadership positions, we have to start from being from the top, but we have grassroots positions. Looking at maybe mostly in our local community, we have the chairperson, the chairpersons, we have the village councils. We have a lot of grassroots we have a lot of grassroots positions that we as young people should not be afraid to compete for, because it starts there. It starts from the community that sees you every day. They see you, they know who you are and how you act when you are around those people. Those people are the ones who will vote for you. Those people are the ones who will campaign for you, because that's where you come from. Home is where you come from. That's why you see a lot of people, when they want to vie for political positions, they say they are going back home to vie for those positions. Why? Because it's easier for the people who know you. It's easier. They say charity starts at home. Those are the people community you have already touched. So I believe that we should also be encouraged enough to start from humble beginnings, and this is where you get experience, this is where you practice. So as you go on to the next position, In Tanzania we have wajumbe, wenye viti wa serikali za mtaa, madiwani, unaenda, yani the more you grow experience-wise, it makes it easier for you to bring even more impact because you started there. By the time you get to where you're going, you already have all the answers to what you want to become. So thank you very much, Brian and Petrida. Thank you very much.
We cannot hear you, Brian. Brian, we cannot hear you.
Yeah, I see him speaking, but I cannot hear you, Brian.
Yes, I think we definitely cannot hear Brian. So I will step in at this moment, and as Brian sorts out his technical problem, I think thank you so much, Ms. Sylvia Mkomo, for that great remarks. I think what were the key outcomes of your submissions included proper engagement of young people and the power to lobby and mobilize. And I think this is what majority of the previous speakers have also mentioned. And seeing the fact that we should work in synergies and not in silos could be a critical foundation. And I do hope our speakers here and also the different participants, we can later on leverage on our partnership to actually work together and ensure an impactful collaboration throughout the communities that we are working on, because ideally working on youth matters, especially in civic engagement, is critical because the young leaders are the leaders of today and tomorrow. So after Ms. Sylvia's submission, I think I'll be welcoming Seleman Abdul Makwita. He's the co-founder and executive director of Action for Democratic Governance. Selemani has worked on several democratic-related projects in country. I think he also has a lot of online engagement and community with a mix of community at the grassroots level. I think I've seen a lot of dialogues that he's been leading together with his team on Room for Democracy. In Swahili, it's Chumba cha Demokrasia. So I think we can tap into the different interventions that he's been doing, which are just a snip of a pinch of salt that I just mentioned, but he has more to let us know. So Mr. Selemani, please, over to you.
Oh, okay, apologies. Just before Mr. Selemani comes in, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we hear you.
Yes, Brian,
Okay.
we can hear you. We
Perfect.
can hear you.
Perfect.
Mr. Selemani, please do proceed.
Okay, thank you. As I introduced, my name is Selemani Abdul Makwita. I'm from Action for Democratic Governance as a co-founder and an executive director for now. FODG is non-partisan, non-profit, non-government organization founded in 7th of July 2021, aiming at promoting and act on the future of Africa through advocating for effective operationalization of the African agendas. The organization was founded to address, advocate, and promote the socio-economic and political development of Africa. So back to our topic of today, which is based on misinformation and disinformation. I think we need to understand that misinformation is when false information is shared, but not harm is meant. So it's just shared and no one may be mean to harm any person. And disinformation, when the false information is knowingly shared to cause a harm. And malinformation is when genuine information is shared to cause a harm, often by moving what was designed to say privacy into a public sphere. So also, I think after having this topic, I think I do some research and to look on how the demand for public access to information, how was the demand for public access to information in Africa? They like to seek and receive information held by public officials or entities is integral to transparent, accountable, and participatory governance. Do African believes in their right to public information? So this is a question. It's a good question to ask ourselves. Do Africans believe in their right to public information? Across 39 countries surveyed in 2021 and 2023, a majority, almost 55%, reject the idea that information held by public authorities is only for use by government officials. So you can see a lot of Africans, they don't believe that they have a right to access public information, almost 55%. About 4 in 10. So it's almost about 4 in 10, it's 80%. And those limiting access to such information, while 70% don't offer an opinion. And what about the supply for public access to information? This is the side of demand. So we want to see the supply. Is the government supplies the public information to community, to citizens in Africa? Demand for access to public information is widespread on the continent and growing in some countries. But do ordinary Africans think they are able to access information held by public authorities? Data from the 39 countries surveyed in 2021 and 2023 suggests they do not. Large majorities of Africans say it's somewhat unlikely or very unlikely that they could access information about the local government contracts. So we have local governments, and this year in Tanzania, we're expecting to have local government elections. And most of the local government, they don't provide any information to its citizens in Africa. So 72% of local government development plans and the budget, or 71% of local schools budget, and 65%, the 65% of local school budgets are not provided to citizens. So sometimes we are talking about development, we're talking about engagement of citizens at the national level. Do we know that even in the local level, we are not even there to know the information about even a local school in our street, what the budget of our local school is a street? Do head teachers utilize this budget, the money allocated to them well? So even citizens in our streets or villages, they don't know anything about the budget of our local schools, local hospitals. So, and this is an area where we can say that authorities and development planning are started at the local level. So sometimes we are more focusing on the national or international level, and we are forgetting this level that we call a street or villages. And in Tanzania, as I said before, we are expecting to have local government elections this year. So I think this information is very important to us. And why, somebody can ask me, why you are talking about these data? I talk about these data because we are talking about information and disinformation. When we don't access this information from the public, we're expecting someone to cook information to us. And when somebody cook information to us, that's what we are talking about, the misinformation and the disinformation. So after that, let's see on issues like social medias or this technology that we are using today. Before it was like government will provide information through a notes board and everything, but now we have social medias. What's the role of technology and social medias on these issues related to misinformation and disinformation or malinformation in the governance system of Africa or in Tanzania governance? Online social networks, OSNs, are rapidly growing, and they have become a huge source of all kinds of global and local news for millions of users. However, online social networks are a double-edged sword. Online social networks are double-edged swords. Although the great advantage they offer, such as unlimited, easy communication and instant news and information, they can also have many disadvantages and issues. One of their major challenge issues is the spread of fake news. Fake news identification is still a complex and unsolved issue. Furthermore, fake news detection on online social networks present unique characteristics and challenges that make finding a solution anything but trivial. On the other hand, artificial intelligence, AI, approaches are still incapable of overcoming this challenge problem. So now we know that we have a lot of artificial intelligence, but still they are not capable maybe of identifying fake news, although we are trying at continental and global level. So we see that social networks, it's a double-edged sword. Sometimes it has some advantage. It's very easy to spread information through it, but also those information, it can be maybe a fake or misinformation or disinformation. So it's had two sides, bad and good side. It depends on how we use it. So the organization like Action for Democratic Governance, which is I work as a executive director. We are trying to be a civic tech organization, an organization which use technology for civic engagement. As Petrida said, we use platform like YouTube, and we have a Chumba cha Demokrasia, or we call it Democracy Room, to provide information which we think is more important to young people to understand. And this maybe will reduce a number of misinformation, disinformation on issues related to governance and the democracy in our country. I think I will talk to it later. And I want also to talk about the advantages of this issue, these online social networks in deep. For example, on issues related to voter education, I remember Lenin was talking about general election next year. He was talking about also the local government elections that we are expecting this year. When the election is coming, the role of civil society organization is to provide voters education, and voter education is crucial in every election, and it's more important when you're transitioning into a new method of election process. The idea of voter education must go beyond the basic information on the need to vote in election, to how to use new technologies. It must also go beyond the basic use of this new technology for trust building to ensure the legal participation of voters in the voting process. Therefore, voters must be educated on the use of the country's adopted technology, its features, functionalities, how resistant the technology is to fraud, and its procedures to elicit the trust of the voters. Without adequate and comprehensive voter education, there will be lack of trust. Voter trust is the most crucial key to credible election. Hence, there is a need to educate the voters on the strengths, weakness, and the vulnerability of the adopted technology. So why I'm talking about these technologies, because in the provision of voters education, you don't use only traditional methods. Now we have technology like as I said, YouTube channels, we have social networks, and how we use these technologies in the provision of voters education, because it will be easy. The information will spread very fast, and make sure that maybe the real information about voting and about the general knowledge related to election reach every person, young people, women, in the all parties of the continent and the all parties of the country. So I can say that successful voter education should ensure that all eligible voters are reached despite the personal logistic challenge that may be encountered. So it'd be very hard for maybe people from the Action for Democratic Governance to travel to Mpanda to provide voters education, but it would be very easy if we use digital technologies, as we call it, civic, to provide information that we see this is real information that is very important for citizens, young people, and women in general. But also, we can see the advantage of using technology even on election result viewing portal. And here we have an example from Kenya, I think. and Nigeria. The election result viewing portal, we call it ERVP, is an online portal that provides real-time public access to the result captured and transmitted from the polling units by digital election devices through cloud service. So you can access information on the result after voting online. Although on these issues related to technology, there is a lot of challenges. There is hackers and everything, but also there is a room to advance the systems. So we can use advanced technology to provide election results through online portals. And we should not just wait for someone to count it manually and wait for 3 days, 2 days for the result to come out. So now there is a systems where you can get updated result on time without waiting for almost 1 or 2 days. They count the times they count, they upload the result automatically and not waiting for maybe for them to collect all the result from different part of the regions and then say that, oh, this is the information that we collect for 2 or 3 days. You are given the result on time. Also, we can talk about this technology has been deployed in Kenya, as I said, in the 2022 election and in Nigeria 2023 election as part of the supposedly new introduction to Nigeria 2023 general election. This technology was anticipated to play a crucial role in addressing pervasive weakness in the election result management process, such as the falsification of the number of votes at polling units, correction of the false result, forging of result sheet, as I said before. Now we avoid issues like forging of result sheet, manipulation of result, snatching and destruction of result sheet. Now you can't snatch the result sheet because everything is online. Election result computation errors and swapping of result sheet. Although the RVP was eventually not optimally deployed in Nigeria's elections, this technology is a significant improvement to election transparency given the opportunity it provides to citizens to access all uploaded results in real time. The accessibility of polling units result has the potential to increase transparency and the public trust in the process. So back to the question I was asked, what's the intervention that we're doing on these issues of misinformation and disinformation in the ground level, at the ground level? So there is a various interventions that we are doing. For example, strengthening the agents for social accountability through meaningful engagement of citizens, particularly young people and women, in policy planning and implementation, both at local and national level. You know, there is a thing called social accountability and monitoring. So young people at local, even at local and national level, they can engage, they can ask about the implementation of the policies, development plans. So they will get information directly from decision makers and not just getting rumors in the street on the, we call it vijiwe vya kahawa in Swahili. So through social accountability, it will be very easy for citizens to access information. So Action for Democratic Governance, we had a project that we're trying to give education on how to hold local government leaders accountable. So if to hold them accountable, you need to have information. So how do you get information? So we teach them the techniques, how to get information from the local government, even at what we call it, a central government, not only local government. But also there is the issue of amplifying regional policy frameworks. You know, in Africa, we have a lot of good frameworks. For example, the African Charter on Democracy, Election and Governance. But in the SADC region, we have the SADC principles of democratic election. So through amplifying the regional policy frameworks, like in a CivTech, such as I said, the principles, the ACDEG and principles of democratic election in SADC, we can use CivTech to amplify these frameworks why we need to amplify this framework? We amplify this framework for citizens to be informed and to know that to get information is not just a Tanzanian issue, it's a regional issue. It's our countries maybe sign and ratify certain documents that force our decision makers to give us information and for us to easy access to those informations. For example, Tanzania is part of SADC, and we know in SADC we have principles of democratic election. Do Tanzanian citizens know these principles of democratic election? Do Tanzanian citizens know what is written in African Charter on Democracy, Election, and Governance? Do Tanzanians, young people, they know the African Charter on Democracy, the African Charter, the African Youth Charter? So we know that there is a lack of information on these regional and continental frameworks. So what we are doing is to make sure that Tanzanians, especially young people, they have information on these regional frameworks. But not only having information, but to demand for effective domestication and the operationalization of agreed principles and frameworks. For example, in Tanzania, we don't sign or ratify the African Charter on Democracy, Election, and Governance. So this is assignment for Tanzanian youth who are listening to me here. We need still pushing our country or our government to sign, ratify, any domestication of this important charter for democracy and governance issues in our continent. But also we need to organize public dialogues. It's very important to have public dialogues because through public dialogues, we will inform our fellow young people, women, and citizens in general. For example, as Action for Democratic Governance, we have a program, it's called Let's Talk Governance. A program aimed to address the problem of poor governance in Tanzania through a series of public dialogues. The program's goal is to include improving transparency, accountability, and public participation, increasing citizen engagement in decision-making, and improving the quality of public services. By achieving these goals, the programs aim to improve the lives of ordinary citizens, mostly youth, women, and people with disability, to create a more open and inclusive society. And last, on the issues of intervention, I can finish on the effective use of technology for governance. And the good example is Chumba cha Demokrasia or Democracy Room. This is a digital advocacy program dedicated to empowering citizens to become an active participant in our democracy and governance. We offer a platform for dialogue between members to provide educational materials and host events and activities to promote civic engagement. So uses of technology, it cannot be a YouTube channel like a Chumba cha Demokrasia. It's like these webinars organized by our friends, Imara, and maybe there is a different approaches. You can use animations. So I can say that this is an opportunity for youth organizations or organization which we are doing governance issues like Imara and TYC to use new approaches of using technologies to provide information and education to our fellow young people and citizens, because we are focusing more on the traditional ways, which is it takes a lot of time to reach a big number of people. But when we use technology, it's be very easy. And most of young people nowadays, they are well good on the uses of technologies, method or approaches to get informations. And we know even in Tanzania, youth constitute almost 70% of the citizens. So it means when you use technology, you reach a lot of people who are supposed to make decisions, maybe through voting and everything. But to finish, I have a concern regarding the protection of personal information. You know, we can say that let's provide information, or let's use technology for information related to governance and democracy. But there is an issues that we need to also to think about. For example, electoral processes across Africa are increasingly relying on the use of technology, involving the collection of storage and the analysis of personal, facial, and other features and information. For example, through biometric voters registration, NEC, now we call it INEC, Independent National Electoral Commission, they can have information of maybe Petrida or someone else, Lenin, about his age or her age, where was he born, and everything, and they have your fingerprints. How we protect this information? I think this is the thing now we need to think about. So facial and other features and information which raises concern about the data protection and the privacy. The concern about data protection and the privacy is serious in this area of technology, especially in a situation where countries contract foreign technology companies to manage the election technology and vote database. Who manage these technologies? Sometimes we have consultants from Europe, maybe in America, on these technologies. How are we sure that our information is kept secretly or privately, and it does not use the battery for any other ways except governance issues and election, maybe in issues related to election. Many African countries rely on international donors also. Even our organization, they rely on international donors for financial support during elections. Such low income or middle income countries lack adequate privacy and protection laws of the capacity to enforce them. At present, some African countries have either vague or inefficient registration of data protection against unauthorized use of such large amount of personal information. So as a young people and as a democrat people or as a governance people, yes, we can embrace technology on issues related to information. This is specifically to fight for misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. But we should not forget issues of protection and the privacy on the uses of technology. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Salemani Abdul-Makwita, for your insights and your strategies, which you highlighted the issue of ratifying, Tanzania government ratifying the Charter for African Democracy, public dialogue, effective use of technology, but also you highlighted the challenges of social media and all of that, and which is more of like protection of personal information. So because of time, unfortunately, we have to quickly transition to the last speaker, which is Mr. Abdallah Abed. He is the founder and executive director of Zanzibar Fighting Against Youth Challenges organization. He leads a youth serving organization in Zanzibar, working in the area of civic engagement for youth, and particularly in areas of promoting human rights, peace, and enhancing democracy in Zanzibar, especially ensuring youth participation in decision-making bodies. So once again, welcome, Mr. Abdallah Abed. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Brian. I'm so pleased to be part of this session, and I'm so honored to get the chance of meeting these great minds from different areas, like from Tanzania, South Africa, and I think my work can be a bit easier because my colleagues have said so many things and they have shared a lot of insights from different perspectives. And the easiest way of going forward, because mine are lessons and I'm supposed to share the lessons from Zanzibar on the way we promote youth engagement in civic participation. And I think so I can go straight forward to the point. And there are so many definitions when we say about engagement, but the most common is to see the possibility of engaging or involving individuals, but here we are talking about youth. So engaging or involving youth in the political, social, and economic processes that affect their communities or that affect their own life. And because I have to share the lessons, I want first to create a case that in this scenario of civic participation can refer to different scenarios like elections, influencing government policies, involved in the local governance, contributing to the formulation of national frameworks or legal frameworks, volunteering, community services, or campaigning for specific causes or policy changes, or joining into the group and see how we can address economic, social, political agenda. But let me touch direct on issues that we have been doing at the FICO, because the FICO is youth serving organization founded in 2011, and we have more than 12 years experience working with young people in Zanzibar, and our reach for now, direct reach is more than 27,000 youth in Zanzibar, and this is a direct reach, but indirectly we have more than 300,000 youth reach. And this is according to our database. We have a beneficiary database that we store every in our context. Of course, because I want to talk about issues, I will go straight to the issue and giving examples so as lessons. What we have been doing, one is to make sure that we contribute to establishing a youth-friendly, participatory legal framework environment by promoting inclusive policies and laws and ensuring fair and citizen-safe law enforcement practices. And we, of course, we have the case scenarios here, and I will share some of the activities or programs or projects that we have been doing. Let me start with how we work on this. Like we played a major role making sure that we develop Zanzibar youth development policy. Now we have Zanzibar youth development policy, and it was signed last year in 2023. And we have youth participation strategic and action plan that the FICO has been part and parcel of the process in preparing this youth strategic and action plan. And the main focus of this plan is to make sure that youth are going to be part and parcel of the processes, governance processes in Zanzibar. Of course, taking into account the youth development policy has been also playing a crucial role, making sure that youth are going to be at the center of the governance in Zanzibar. And there are special sections that discuss about the participation of youth and how the government has to strive making sure that youth become part of the governance system. And of course, in 2013, we played, it was not the central part of it because our organization was still in the growth, but we played part to make sure that we have a special law that established the Zanzibar Youth Council. And currently we have Zanzibar Youth Council, of course, despite the challenges it faces and so many things, but it's still there and it operates. And I think now, like in Tanzania mandate, you are still pushing forward for this National Youth Council. And I heard that now you have the law. and you're waiting to establish the council itself. Of course, we have been playing a major role making sure that we are advocating for the changes, especially on electoral laws, legal framework that govern elections in Zanzibar. And in 2020, after election, because we observed the election in 2020, so we came up with a joint committee between civil society, that's the FICO was part of the team, and Zanzibar Electoral Commission, trying to look for the possibility of putting our recommendations into action, especially the recommendation that touch the interest of young people in Zanzibar. And of course, we are so happy that we got the support from ASA and other partners to make sure that we made this realized. And of course, another work is to make sure that we amplify the voices of young people on public forums and spaces. Of course, we are also playing a major role to make sure that young people are given the tools and skills to be proactive in civic participation. And out of this, of course, we have civic expansion champions. Now we have prepared the civic expansion champions under the support of National Endowment for Democracy. And currently we have 60 champions. And these champions, of course, we came up with this idea during Magufuli era. I think that things were different from the current situation. So we come up with the idea of having young people that will help to expand the civic space in Zanzibar. And of course, under the support also of the Westminster Philanthropic Fund, we came up with an initiative. We call it Youth Network. These are young people, very energetic, 100 young people that are at the Kijiweni level. I mean, at the very local context, coming together, talking about different issues related to civic engagement. And we have brought together different young people from different political parties, NGOs, some few activists, and now we are trying to groom them to be political analysts, because I know we have these political analysts, senior political analysts, but after a certain time, maybe after 5 to 10 years, we won't have political analysts. So we are preparing young people to be the political analysts. And of course, among the work we've been doing is to dismantle the negative narrative within the community about youth engagement. I think you all know that Zanzibar is a place where cultural and religious affairs are very dominating. So we are trying to break the barriers. So out of this, we came up with a project. We call it Zanzibar National Girls Social Shifters. And the most affected are young women and girls. So we have come up with this National Girls Social Shifters. These are 80 young girls, young women and girls. They're at the district level. So one among the issues they are doing is to make sure that they break the barriers that affect their participation and engagement. And we share our special thanks to Malala Fund for this support. And we have been equipping youth with the knowledge and skills to make sure that they can build the very meaningful dialogues between them and the government officials. And we have been proliferating so many dialogues between young people and government officials. So Of course, here we have dialogues between youth and justice institutions as part of strengthening the rule of law in Zanzibar, and we bring together the justice institutions like judiciary, director of public prosecution, office, police force, ministry responsible for good governance, which is under the president's office, and Commission for Human Rights and Good Governance. We bring them together, having dialogues, and then we come up with a joint strategy. And then the joint strategy, then we co-implement. We implement jointly to make sure that the raised issues, the raised concerns are taken forward. And here, of course, you have to thank Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. They have been playing the role to support us resourcefully, making sure that we go ahead with these dialogues. Out of the dialogue, I can take one example of the recommendation that popped up several times from most of the participants. That, of course, most of the cases, they are the first hand, they are going to be reported at the police stations. And they were claiming that the cases are going to be, they are distorted at the police station level. So we decided to provide a refresher workshop for about 250 police officers on issues of human rights and how they can play their part on upholding the rule of law in Zanzibar. So this is just one example I wanted to share. And of course, out of this, we have been supporting or empowering youth to be at the central part of shaping the democratic context in Zanzibar as peace ambassadors, as voter educators, as electoral observers, because they have to decide on the type of democracy they want, the type of governance they want. So what we are making sure is to prepare them to be peace ambassadors, to be voter educators, to be election observers. Like taking an example of 2020 general election, we deployed 122 observers, and in all institutions that observed or that had a mission in Zanzibar on election observation, I think we had highest number of observers, and all of them, 122, were young people, and we wanted them to go there and see how election is conducted, how the democratic process is practiced in their country. So this is a very good example, I think, to share with you. Of course, we have 220 peace ambassadors. I think you have a background knowledge that Zanzibar has been, the elections have been marred. Our elections have been marred by violence, and so it's very important to make sure that we maintain peace and order. And having the government of national unity now, it's one among the strategy to make sure that Zanzibar becomes so peaceful. It's a very beautiful island, so we attract tourists as a major contributor of our economy sector. So we have to make sure that Zanzibar is peaceful. So that's what we do to make sure that the young people themselves become the peace ambassadors. And of course, we have been transforming youth from being human rights violators to human rights monitors. And we want them to be human rights monitors, human rights protectors, and human rights promoters. And out of this, we have a special project. It's called Desk of Human Rights. The Desk of Human Rights, we have human rights monitors in every district of Zanzibar. And what they do is to collect the human rights violations. And in this, we are publishing an annual human rights report every year. Now we are partnering with Legal Human Rights and I think you all know LHRC, to publish the annual human rights report. But at this stage, we have a memorandum of understanding with the police force and Commission for Human Rights and Good Governance, making sure that the cases are sometimes directly referred to the police force, or we are taking the cases that maybe the state is involved, then we are sending the cases, the violations cases, to the Commission for Human Rights and Good Governance, SHRAG, because they are party states. I mean, they have binary role. They are playing part as a state organ, but also independent one. So we are using this platform to transcend our cases to the states. Of course, we are also making sure that we increase the number of youth in the decision-making bodies. And of course, we have been providing several leadership programs, and we have a special program, we call it Youth Leadership Academy, and making sure that youth are prepared to be good leaders of today and tomorrow. And then we are placing them at the local government level. Like we have a project that's funded by USAID, whereby we place 240 young people, of course, in decision-making processes and the decision-making bodies. These are two different things. Sometimes they can be just part of the community forums that come up with different agenda, and then young people play a role to make sure that they bring forward their interests, they bring forward their needs, and then their needs are considered. But then, of course, we are making sure that young people monitor and become part and parcel of the implementation of government projects and programs. So out of this, we have a project that's funded by Forensic, and this is a 2-year accountability project. We call it Wajibu Wako Haki Yetu. So I mean, your responsibility is our right. So this project has created platforms at the district level between young people and district officials. I mean, district government officials. They come together with some district civil society organizations discussing about the programs and projects that are implemented at the district level. These are the government projects and programs. So we use program like SAM or public expenditure tracking or accountability scorecards, and youth have got the chance to track the implementation, come up with a issue that they think the government is not working well on a certain program or certain project at the district level, and then we collect their views and then submit them to the either district itself or at the regional level that is raised. And of course, here we have almost 110 young people at the district level, because we have 11 districts in Zanzibar, and every district we have 10 champions, making sure that they come up and bring this together. I think I have shared. I don't want to exhaust much because of the interest of time, and I'm the last. I think I'm the last speaker, and my colleagues have said a lot. And I think we want to give the floor to the audience if they have any questions, suggestions, they want any clarification. Yeah, we don't want to dominate this and become a monologue. And for your information, currently we are accredited to conduct permanent voter registration process observation, but also voter education. And recently we have finalized the observation of Kwahani constituency. Now we are preparing a report, but all of these activities are done by young people. So we are making sure that young people, they stand on their own, they are so self-sustaining, they do things on their own because they have to change the narratives on their own, not on behalf. As my colleague from South Africa said, we want them to be used to be part of the decision, not to be represented or being just. I think my colleague from South Africa or maybe Petrida, I heard she said that now we want young people to be at the central part of it and not just being represented. Thank you very much, and to you, moderator.
Okay. Once again, thank you so much, Mr. Abdallah, for your exhaustive lessons from Zanzibar. And I would like to also thank all speakers for their insightful contributions. Just a quick recap of our session. We had 2 parts. The first part were guest speakers who are able to give their insights or information about misinformation and disinformation during elections or electoral processes. And then we had the second session, which is particular examples or issues that were raised by the speakers. And then lastly, we're going to have the question and answer session. So quickly, if any of you have a question, please raise your hand, and any of the above speakers will address your questions accordingly before we have the closing remarks. Thank you. Yes, Michael Manjale has a question. Sorry. The technical team, can you unmute Michael? Okay, Michael, go ahead. Hello, Michael, we can't hear you.
Hello, Brian. So I think Michael also has some technical challenges. Maybe if we can have any more questions from anyone. If not, we can proceed to some closing statements. So ideally, we have a question from Method. Method, can you unmute and talk? And then we'll see if this will work this time around before we proceed. And so we have a couple of hands up, but okay, yes, Method, please proceed.
Okay. I would like to ask to the speakers that what is the initiatives that have been created on Earth Empowerment that in order to create a good development of the Earth participation in leaderships, because as Miss Sylvia has elaborated that yearly participations and political and leadership aspects faces a lot of challenges. Actually, challenges are there, but our role is to create a good environment that will cover those challenges and be unharmful to youths, young people in Tanzania, in order to have a good impact of this generation young people. So I would like to know that initiative from these CSOs which are engaging on a youth generation. Also, another one, I would like to know that this webinar session. So, which young group are we addressing? So, are we addressing the young people who are political participants or non-political participants? Because we had this issue that there are young people in Tanzania who are willing to participate in leadership, but they are not willing to join these political parties because they seem to see that they are not favorable with political.
Okay, Method, are you done with your questions? Hello, Method, are you there?
I think Method is done, and I've
Okay.
noted the question. Can we take the second round of questions so that once we proceed, we have the closing statement from each speakers. Miriam, can you unmute yourself?
Thank you so much, Katrina. I had asked my question through the QA section. Yeah, and okay, this is my concern. Actually, when you look at the Africa at large, you realize that we have so many people who are holding political positions. They are so aged, like they're of a really good age. And we are here advocating for the young people to take up the positions, participate, not only in taking the position, but also in the whole process. But then you realize that that age group, like the generational gap is quite huge between that, the people holding the current positions and the people we want to get them. And that means that we have a conflict of interest where we, the young people, we want to get in the spaces and participate to create a better future for ourselves and our children. But we have those who are there, who are of good age, maybe retired, whose interest is just to sustain their relevance in the public spaces and also in their political career. Like they care less about the future. Yes. And so when we are bringing in us, or we are coming up as youth and as it has been highlighted with among the speakers, like with the young people, somehow we don't have the financial muscle to compete with these political these people who have been there for some time. They have built finances and have done a lot. And so how can we, the young people who take up such position, prevent the dilution of our interest? Because these people who are there, they are still the political gatekeepers, and they want their interests sustained. And when we are coming up with new ideas, they feel threatened by the young generation coming up. So how can we prevent such in this, when we are advocating for young people to get to such position where they can lead and create a better future for themselves and their children? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Miriam. I think that was a very pertinent question. So ideally, I'll just randomly select based on the speakers' submissions on who to respond to what, because we have very limited time and we need all our speakers to share some last final statements. So ideally, for Method's question, I really like to take it back to Mr. Lenin to maybe share some insights, because I'm aware They have been doing a lot of work around engaging young people towards civic education, and they're having a lot of different programmatic focuses, apart from all the speakers also working on this particular area. But maybe just to get a bit of a sense of how is the work really done, Method wants to understand who are the young people we are targeting? Are we targeting politicians, young politicians, or are we targeting average young leaders? And if it's average young leaders, where are we actually getting these average young leaders? Are we getting them at community level? Are we getting them in schools? Or are we just doing random selections based on young people who are already in key institutions? So Mr. Lenin, if you could come over and just respond probably in just 1 minute pointer, and then we can proceed to the next question.
Yeah, thank you very much, moderator. Yeah, and I can respond to the question from the other participants. Yeah, I think it's a very good question. And the young people that we are targeting, this is the young people who are coming from the community level. And also, we are looking at not only young people who are already member of the political parties. As you know that from my presentation, I was saying that according to the Tanzania Constitution, that it say that it's not allowed to have the Constitution is not allowed to have a individual member that can be contesting a different position. So ideally, it's just also to encourage young people that to engage in the political parties. I know it's very difficult, and most of them, of course, they've been losing the appetite on that, but we can show that there's a relevance on that. And when you go back to the local government authority, we are something that's called that in Tanzania, building local no, it's a budget cycle. That is starting from the local level. And we noticed that most of the young people are not taking part of this, but this is the area where a lot of preparation of the budget is starting from the scratch. So if we are not really empower these young people and understanding that the issue of the budget cycle, where it started, all the position will be taken by the elder people. So the one thing that is very important, we need also to empower them and to become more self-independence, because majority they don't have more knowledge when it comes to these issues, and how it works for them to lead a different position as a member or as a leader from the local level. So it's a very important, or the other speakers as well, they say, we should use that the social media to make sure that they become more influence, and also to become more powerful when it comes to the information, but also to give a different training, as other people they were saying, other speakers they were mentioning, because there's a lack of that, because majority they are not aware. So by using this lot of program that we are engaging now, this is going to open up a lot of discussion, and also we could also make sure that they are encouraging other young people to buy this position. As I mentioned, our constitution is not allowed that to have an individual person that contesting different positions. So you need to be a member of a political party. So the target, as I mentioned, we are targeting all young people from the political party and non-political party, as long as the young people. Thank you very much, Patrida. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lenin. I think that is very well addressed and very well covered. I don't want to leave Miriam pending. And I don't know if Yorokazi, you're still online. So we really have an issue of ageism that is still targeting most of African countries, but most of our work, whereby we have a huge generational gap. You'll find people from the age of 60, from the age of 70, trying to still maintain their seats in power. And how do we ensure that young people can have such position and prevent the delusional threats that Miriam just raised, so as we can actually ensure that when we are working to talk about youth representation and youth in offices, it's not ticking the boxes once again and just have old people sitting in the offices while they let the young people go out in the streets. How can we address that?
Well, thank you so much, Petra, for that question. And I mean, this is an issue that affects young people across the globe. The issue of ageism, and it's also based on the idea that the older you are, the more wise you are, which is not necessarily an untruth. There is a bit of truth in that, but that should not be used against young people who are actually having a chance to actually make change in their various sectors. The issue of ageism, how we can better maybe mitigate it. I always say that for anyone, for any human being, or for young people to actually see that things can be done, they need to see people actually doing the work. So it's one thing to talk about all the challenges, we write about them, but we want to see young people in these positions of power. We want to see young people who are actually going to be able to say, I've done it, this can be done. Then it then become a norm. Because now it has been culture that young people are not going to be included in decision-making tables on the basis that you're still going to have a chance. There's still life is long, therefore you're going to have a chance to lead. But it is important that young people are actually trained with various skills from a young age, that if you are going to run for a political office, you must start organizing as a young person. Hence, for instance, in South Africa, we've had structures on various communities, had structures in high schools, had structures in universities. This is to build the young person who's going to take up space as a political leader at a later stage. So it's important that they're involved from a very young age, but from any other position in their society. High school, primary school, community level, in football clubs. It's very important that young people are seen in different sectors of society. So we could be able to avert that if we organize properly with young people.
Thank you so much, Yolokazi. That was very well addressed. And just to mention, I've dropped a link in the chat box. Please feel free to interact with all our guest speakers. You can find their profiles, including their handles, social media handles, and the website of their organizations, so that you can continue to interact with them, but also maybe you might want to work on a joint initiative together. And just to wrap it up, I'll just welcome for the speakers that haven't yet spoke to give us one clear recommendation on a small advice in just 1 minute each. How can we work together on the civic engagement space? So starting off with Selemani and followed by Abdallah and finally Miss Sylvia. I'm not sure if Selemani can hear me. Is Abdallah on the call?
I hear you, Petrida. I'm
Oh,
here.
yes. Please, can you give us just one statement, just in 1 minute? How best can we work together on civic engagement spaces in Tanzania?
Okay. I think we need to have, we are heading to local government election and general election next year. I think we need to have more initiative like this one, but it's not in a way of like everyone have its maybe Imara do the same thing as FODG is doing or the FICO is doing. So we need a way like we can work together. We have common agendas. For example, when you remember the time youth in Nigeria, they have a campaign called Not Too Young to Learn. And that, although there is no any maybe youth becoming a president at that time, but they changed some policies. For example, now they changed the constitution and they reduce a number of a person to contest for president position. So my advice is we can continue with our own programs in an organization, but let's think as the young people in Tanzania, Imara, TYC, Action for Democratic Governance, and other organizations, how we come up with a common agenda for the coming general election next year in Tanzania. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Selemani. And that was well received. Abdallah, please come through.
Yes, thank you very much. I think Suleiman had said it very well. I would like to insist on synergy collaboration and to share techniques and tactics on how we can make sure that we are going to increase civic engagement of youth. And I think one among the very good platform is like what we do now, or what we are doing here. I think this is a very good example, and I would like to congratulate you for coming up with this idea. And I think we can even have like a regular updates on different techniques and tactics to ensure that this is going to be realized. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Abdallah. I think that's well noted. And just to also remind all our attendees and followers is that this is an ongoing series. We will start with several youth and women-led sessions, and then we'll be followed by in-person sessions so that we ensure that we actually reach people on the ground. And we do hope most of our guest speakers will be part of that facilitation process to share their knowledge to others in a broader audience. Miss Sylvia, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yes. Yes, please.
As for me, my highlight goes to, first of all, we should document what we are capturing through our implementation on the ground. We have so many organizations, we have so many individuals who are already putting in efforts to make sure that young people engage. But how do we document the challenges that we find on the ground, to come and share it, to do exchange programs that we can share with other, like-minded individual organizations or the community itself? It will help us acquire approaches that really work for our communities and young people. Because at the end of the day, we might have these partnerships, but we might be doing the wrong approaches towards influencing young people. So if we can document what we are getting on the ground and share it with one another, it would help for us to know which ways we are going. Because at the end of the day, everyone would say, I'm doing civic engagement, but what is really the problem on the ground? Where are the entry points? We should also understand that. But the second thing is to strengthen these partnerships. They should be meaningful partnerships in terms of, let's capacitate one another. If you have a strong organization that has been working for years, it has great experience and knowledge towards civic education, do programs that can, impact other upcoming organizations, because we say we want collaboration, but collaboration comes with merit. When someone has more knowledge and ability than the other, it's easier for them to get support. So how are we holding hands with the upcoming organization, especially youth organizations? We have talked about financial freedom. It's not only at individual level, it goes to organizational levels. How many young people organizations are intentional about bringing impact, but they have no support, and they cannot get support because they lack experience. So let's hold hands and carry one another. And, you know, we already have a shared goal. We already know what the goal is. So let's work together on the objectives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sylvia. Let me just take this opportunity to thank all our guest speakers. We've had a lot of great insights, starting from our first speaker, Ms. Nyangubu, but also followed by Ms. Yolokazi. And I think a lot of insights from the gentlemen in the rooms, from Mr. Abdallah, Mr. Lenin, and Selemani. I think we've had a lot of insights and a lot of information that will take it forward to actually work tangibly, not only collaborating, but collaborating to solve the effects and the problem on the ground. And I think a majority of all of us are already doing great work on the ground, and it's quite impactful. I think we'll keep on the conversation and see how much we can help and ensure that the civic engagement agenda is on the top of agenda in most issues. That's it from my side. I think, Brian, do you have your last words to say? And then we can close the session.
Yeah, once again, I'd like to welcome all the speakers for their insightful contributions. I'd like also to thank the participants and the one who also raised a number of good questions. Just to remind you to follow on our social media pages for all the updates regarding our forthcoming programs and so forth. So once again, thank you for your time and thank you for being with us today. And we wish you a very great evening. Thank you once again. Over to you, Bedrida.
And thank you, Brian. I don't have anything much to say, just to thank everyone and wish you a good rest of the evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.